Good evening, dear parents. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our long-awaited masterclass on sex education. This is Deeply Rooted Parents course. And today we have some other parents joining us who are eager to learn about how to provide sex education for their children. So we have been on this topic now. I think this is the third or the fourth session, and we are going to keep making progress. But because we had a few questions that kept coming up that proved that we have not really gotten practical tips on how to actually go about the conversation. I received some questions that made me realize that the information we have gotten so far, many of us are still finding difficulties translating it into practical talking points. So this class is a very practical class that will actually show you what to do and how to teach what you have to teach. You know, I tried to break it down into simplified steps, and that helps you be able to situate yourself and your children so that you can know exactly what you need to do, because there are so many of us who are yet to start having these conversations. So let's get into it. At the end of the session, you are going to be able to ask any questions or to make any comments. So let's get right into today's class. Once again, you are welcome. Thank you for joining me for this session. Okay, so we're going to look at a few things that I want us to note. Yes, we have really laid a foundation for sex conversation, for sex education, for providing sex education for our children. But in today's class, I would like us to take a closer look at a few things that are worth noting before we dive in to provide sex education for our children. The very first thing I want us to remember is that you, the parent, are the most important piece when it comes to having sex conversations with your child. Your knowledge, your how you go about it matters a lot. So you, the parent, are the most important piece when it comes to the sex conversation. This is why the best person to sex educate a child is their parent. The second thing I want you to note is that it's not all about sex. We've already established that on so many counts, but I'm still saying it because I keep getting questions that, you know, take us back to this point. It is not all about sex. And note that too much information or too little information can be as dangerous as no information at all. So remember that it goes beyond sex to include sexuality and sexual behavior, as well as the human body. The third thing I want you to note is that your relationship and your connection with your child will determine how successful you will be in having these effective sex conversations with your child. So that's why, for those of you who are taking the Deeply Rooted Parents course, you will see us giving you exercises that are meant to help you connect with your child. Because without that connection, without that bond, without that relationship, your sex conversations will not be effective. So your bond with your child is very important. The state of the health of your relationship with your child is very, very important. The next thing you have to note is that your child, no matter how young they may be, already has some information in this area. Usually as parents, we think that we know it all. Of course, we know more than our children, but then we always have the assumption that the child is probably just ignorant. You know, we're going to look at that as you go ahead. The next thing you have to note is that children are naturally curious. So be ready for questions. If you go in without being prepared that your child will ask you questions, you may actually be shocked and not know what to say when your child asks you certain things. Try to remember to answer your child in an age-appropriate manner. This is why we are going over this particular segment of the lesson again, because sex doesn't come in until a certain stage of your child's development, right? So your child may actually ask you about the dynamics of sex before they get to the stage where you're supposed to teach them about that. Why? Because we are living in a sexualized world. So don't be surprised that your child may be asking you of things that you have not even planned to teach yet, right? Resist the temptation to lie. You may actually ask the child to wait and you will get back to them, but you go and find, you know, age-appropriate words that you can, because your child is asking because they are already aware. So you cannot try to delay that information again because your child is already at that level. But what you need to do is to be able to prepare yourself so you can answer your child's question in an age-appropriate manner. So every age has appropriate aspects of sex education to be taught, right? And it must be an ongoing conversation. Parents, throughout this holiday period, you need to find different opportunities to emphasize and emphasize and emphasize your sex conversations. Don't say, because I taught my child about the name of their private part yesterday, I should not be teaching it again next week. No, especially for the little, for the toddlers, for the children 5 and below. You want to keep repeating because they have a short memory span. So your understanding of, what your child is capable of per age and per stage is supposed to be a big tool for your sex conversations. Because we know that children below 5 have short memories. They have short attention spans. So this means that you need to emphasize and re-emphasize. Sex conversations are not done once and for all. No. No matter how old your child is, even at 15, you need to keep finding ways to emphasize and re-emphasize what you have taught. So you are the best person to teach your child about this. The earlier you begin, the better. Stop delaying, right? One of us shared her experience, and she said that, she had taught her child, and I think the following week, the child actually had an encounter with a neighbor's child. Imagine that this child did not know what to do or didn't know anything. So don't delay. The earlier you start, the better. The goal is to be the first to teach your child what needs to be taught per stage. There is something called the law of first mention, meaning that the person who mentions the subject first is the one that the child will most likely refer to when they have questions in that area. So you want to be the first to teach. You want to be the point of reference. You want to be the person that your child will run to when they have questions regarding this very sensitive area, so that it gives you the chance to not just give information, but to deliver that information enveloped in your values, right? Because sex is one area where you really want to teach values along with the information. The final thing I want you to remember is that you must try to teach your child without fear or shame, right? Don't let the fear of, predators, my child could be abused. No, that should not be the driving force behind these lessons. No, because fear is always an inappropriate tool for communicating any kind of information, right? So you want to take your time and actually hang on the fact that what you are teaching is meant to equip and empower your child, and should not be because you're afraid that they'll be abused, right? Yes, that's the secondary thing you're trying to achieve. But primarily, it's just like you teaching your child how to wash their clothes. You are giving your child a life skill. So don't allow fear. Don't go in being fearful. Because when you are fearful, there are certain things your child will ask you that may cause you to react in a negative way because you are driven by fear. So you want to go in confidently and without shame. Because if you go in with shame as well, you find yourself concealing information because you are feeling ashamed. No, there's no shame. This is a life skill. And what you're teaching your child is meant to help your child. So if you're ashamed, you're going to find yourself withholding information. How to go about it quickly. Step 1, you want to ask. No matter how young your child is, if your child can talk, then you want to ask simple questions, simple age-appropriate questions. It's very important to know what your child already knows. Why? Remember I said the sex conversation, too much information or too little information is almost as dangerous as no information at all. So if you don't start by asking to find out what your child already knows, you may assume that your child knows, less than what they actually do, and you teach less, right? You don't go to the point of actually verifying what your child already knows and delivering or correcting whatever it is that they may have as information. So you want to always ask, because it enables you to correct any misinformation. And it's also an easy way to start up a conversation, because most parents are very embarrassed. There are many of us here who have been having these classes from the beginning to now and still don't know how to even begin. Asking, trust me, is one of the easiest ways to start this conversation. Ask your, are you a boy or a girl? If you're dealing with a child who is maybe 3 years and below, are you a boy or a girl? I'm a boy or a girl. Ask, what makes you a boy? What makes you a girl? Those are easy ways to just glide in and, you know, begin your sex conversations with your child. The second step you want to follow is that you want to proceed to correct any misinformation. So your child has told you, he says, I'm a boy because I wear trousers, right? That's not very accurate. It's not wrong entirely, but it's not very accurate. So you want to proceed by correcting any misinformation, by giving the facts in an age-appropriate manner, please. The third thing you want to do is to answer questions they may have and give room for more questions, because this will help you actually clarify any areas of misunderstanding. So you ask questions, but you also give room for your child to ask questions to you as well. So I have here a diagram that I actually shared on the Deeply Rooted Parents Forum, and I'm sharing it again, right? You know, how to have an effective sex conversation with your child. 5 things that you want to remember about the sex conversation. Number 1, start by asking. We already mentioned that. Number 2, be honest. Keep the facts simple in an age-appropriate manner, because trust is key. Please, parents, resist the temptation to lie. Where do babies come from? They fall from the sky. Oh, I went to the toilet and I pulled, the baby came out. Resist those common lies that we tell our children when they ask us questions. They are asking you because they believe that you probably are an authority in the subject. But if what you tell them, right, does not match or falls short of what they have heard, or if they don't believe you, they will go and ask someone else. That's really one thing you do not want as a parent. The third thing is that you want to take your time. If your child asks you a question that shocks you, right? How are babies made? You're not prepared for that. Maybe you came to teach your child about body parts and privacy, and your child says, how are babies made? Where did they come from? How did the baby start growing in mama's womb? You know, so you want to take time to pause, think about it, think about the right words to use, and it is okay to reschedule the conversation. Tell your child we'll talk about it. It gives you it's always better to go and take time and prepare what you want to come and say. Please mute your mic when you come on. Thank you. So it's always better to go and prepare, because you don't want to rush and give your child too much information or use words that are not appropriate for their age. The 5th thing you want to do is that you want to be flexible, right? You may not have all the answers, and that's okay. Reschedule. If your child knows more than you are willing to teach, or more than you are willing to cover in that conversation, right? You want to take some time to actually reschedule so you can cover the span of what your child already knows. So go and prepare. Don't rush into it. Don't rush. Avoid rushing. So there are things you might want to consider when having sex conversations. The very first thing, right, is the environment. Dear parents, please. You have your teenage child, and you take your child maybe in an environment where other people can hear, other adults maybe can hear what you're discussing. Your child will be embarrassed. Your child will close up. Your child may not open up or participate the way they had to participate. So it's important for you to create a favorable environment that encourages trust and also boosts curiosity. You want your child to ask you questions based on what they have already heard. You don't want your child to be in an environment where they cannot be free to tell you that somebody told me about a condom. They said condom is this or that. And your child can't talk to you. Please, please, please. If you have children around you, this class is not for children. Please excuse your children from this particular session. It's not for them. This is not how you sex educate your child. This is training for you, the parents. So please move away from your children. Ask them to excuse you while we go on with the class, because there are things I will say here that may not be appropriate for your child's age. Your child may have heard about condoms, and because your environment is not comfortable, the child is not free to ask you what they want to ask you. So you need to provide opportunities for discussion and exploration, right? Ensure that your child is comfortable, especially for the preteens and the teenagers. Very important. You also want to consider the age differences between your children and what sex education for each of those ages entails. Very important. Now, you need to try to move away from group sex education, because as we go further, you will see that what you teach at each stage or for certain age groups is different. You can't be teaching a preteen with a toddler. No, you don't group. There's nothing like group sex education. Please, no. Right? There are certain ages. Yes, your older children may sit in when you teach the younger ones, but when the reverse is true, you want to excuse the younger ones from this so the older ones can actually get what they are supposed to get. So try to always consider the ages of your children when you are preparing to have a sex conversation with your child. So certain things you want to consider. You may just take your child for a drive if you have a car. Put your child in the car, drive. Drive somewhere. It's a very, very unique and comfortable environment to actually have a good sex conversation with your child. Another thing you want to do is that you may actually organize a trip, right, with your child. You go somewhere. A new environment may actually be encouraging for your child to open up. Or you organize one-on-one dates, right? A one-on-one date is a time when you take out your child. You could take your child out somewhere. Or you could invite your child into your room. But actually taking your child out really does magic because it helps you connect with that child. If you want to take that child somewhere, take the child on a date. It's a daughter. Your daughter's father can actually take her out on a date, or you, the mom, can take out your daughter or even your son. Remember that sex conversations are not sex related, meaning that it must not be the parent of a particular sex that educates the child of the same sex. No, both parents must be involved. So take your child on a one-on-one date. Another thing you could try to do is to take a walk in the neighborhood, right? Take the child, tell your child, let's go and stroll. And during that time, you actually begin to brush on the subject, right? You may want to give your child something to read. This works really well for preteens and teenagers because the conversation at this level is very detailed. So you may want to give your child something to read, right? It's a good way to actually introduce the topic to them. Give them something to read and then call them in for a conversation or for a discussion based on what they have already read. So those are tips that you want to consider. So moving forward, so let's look at 0 to 4 years practically, right? What are we supposed to be teaching? Please, let's follow keenly because most of us are still asking questions that are taking us back to things we have already handled. 0 to 4 years, the goals that the parent must try to achieve when it comes to sex education at this age. The very first thing you want to do is that you want to build a connection with your child. We have emphasized here that sex education begins from birth. Not at 2 years, not at 3 years, not at 4 years. No, it begins from birth. And what you do from birth is actually build a connection with your child, right? As your child grows 1 year, 1.5, when they begin to learn to express themselves, that is when you begin to practice gender identity. Even when your child is little, still a baby, making eye contact with your child, talking to your child, calling them a boy, expressing your joy that they are actually your child and that they are a particular sex. These are all ways that we emphasize our children's gender. So gender identity is what we also do at this stage. The third thing you do at this stage is that you introduce the genitals and other private parts to the child. You teach good touch and bad touch, and you introduce the concept of privacy. We'll look at that as we go ahead. So for the goals, we're going a bit further. Building healthy connections with your child, right? Engage in activities that promote bonding and healthy connections with your child. This is a whole course on its own, right? I teach this under building a strong bond with your child. But even aside that, your relationship with your child will always be put in focus when it comes to having sex conversations or sex educating your child. Because without a good connection, without a good relationship, your child will not take it from you, right? Because you need a bond to be able to have influence on your child. Your sex conversations will not be effective if you don't have a good bond or relationship in place. Meaning that no matter what you teach, your child may always prioritize what others have said over what you have said if your bond is not strong. The second goal at this level is gender identity. Very, very important. This is crucial, parents. It may look like nothing, but because the world in which we live in now is the world where children are told that they can choose to be a boy or to change to become a girl. It means that affirming your child's gender, emphasizing your child's. For those of us who are in the Western world, those are people who really understand what I'm talking about here. Because in schools, children are being taught that they have the right to change their sex. And actually, the state actually backs up this right. We have children as young as 3, I've seen on the news, who actually start going gender reassignment surgeries. This is that we are in a different world today. So gender identity is crucial. You want to affirm your child's gender. Just making statements like, I am happy you are a boy like daddy. I am so glad that you are a girl like mama. You know, for a young child of 2, that's how you begin affirming your child's gender. Simple statements. I'm happy you're a boy like so and so. I'm happy that you're a girl like so and so. Oh, you're such a beautiful girl. Stop using words that should be used to affirm girls for boys. Let's stop feminizing boys as well. There are certain things that we do as mothers that actually confuse our children. You have a boy of maybe 2, 3, 4, and you give him your wig to measure, or you give him your makeup to put on. No, you need to encourage your children to do things that are gender appropriate for them, right? And don't encourage them to don't confuse your sons and your daughters, right? You know, you tell your son you're such a beautiful boy, you're very pretty, you're like a girl. Affirm your child's gender. You also want to introduce the genitals by using proper names for the genitals. Point to the body parts and name them as you bathe and dress your child. Very simple. So that's why I say sex conversation is an ongoing conversation. It's not a classroom lecture where you wait until you corner your child one evening at 3 years and you sit them down and you say this and that. No, it's an ongoing conversation in which the parent actually is able to situate key moments where they can teach different things. When you're giving your child a bath or you're dressing them, you can talk about the genitals. You can talk about the different body parts. You can teach your child the proper names for these parts as well. Okay, you may use nicknames, right? Because usually that's what the child maybe has been told around the house, your pee, your wee. But you must ensure the child knows the proper name for these parts. Because growing up, we are more comfortable using nicknames than actually using proper names. There is nothing shameful about using proper names. And you should teach your children that it's okay to call it by their names. One of us said that their child was taught in class, and the teacher said that they should not use the name, they should not call the name of the private part. Why? It's a name like every other body part. This is how we actually get our children to start being silent about things that they should actually be talking about when they actually come in contact with abuse or abusive tendencies, because we have taught them that they should not talk about these things. So when somebody actually begins, the child is not able to speak up because you have taught them that it's a taboo to talk about private parts. Hey, penis, how can you call penis? No, you don't say that. You don't say that. It's not correct. So we actually teach them not to talk about these things. Talk about the hand. Why can't they talk about, you know, the penis or the vagina or the vulva? These are body parts. So let's try to.
Second story is which one? That woman or Butidegi? Which one is Butidegi?
Let's try to take away the fear and the shame that we usually attach to sex conversations. So by the 2nd to the 3rd year, your child should master the first 2 points, right? Your child should master their gender and the different names for the genitals. By age 3, you want to teach your child about the differences between boys and girls and the names of the different parts again. You emphasize it again. So use the appropriate body parts and their names. Teach your child the proper names for their body parts. Identify the parts of their body that is private to them. So we have come back to this issue of private body parts. I mentioned that there's something that we need to move away from, right? Which is teaching our children that that there are public parts that people can touch. I said that is a disempowering thing to teach your child, because when you teach your child that certain parts are okay to touch and certain parts, are open, anybody can touch anyhow, the child may not actually be empowered to say no when someone touches them in an inappropriate way, because you've taught them that that part is open to be touched, especially as they grow older. But you want to teach your child about the parts of their body that are private to them. This is what they call the bikini areas, right? When you put on a bikini, like swimming suit, you have the breast area, you have the anus, you have the vagina or vulva, and you have the penis, you have the anus, you have the buttocks, and you also have the thighs, right? You could tell your child these are the areas where clothes usually cover. We cover them under our clothes because they are private. They are not meant to be displayed in public. This is where you're going to have problems, is in a household where your children actually are allowed to dress inappropriately. All right, there's something called decent dressing. So when you have kids that dress and expose their bodies, when you start teaching them this, they will not really understand the parts that actually should be covered by clothing. but there are body parts that should be covered by clothing. These parts are ideally parts that are private to you. You don't move around with your breast exposed. You don't move around, with your laps exposed. So these are parts that are private to your child, and you want to teach your child that these are areas where no one is allowed to touch. These are not parts that you play with. Your lips, the lips are also involved. That's also a private part. No one is allowed to play with these parts. No one should ask you to touch their own private parts, right? And you should not also be allowing anyone to maybe put their private parts on your private part, which is your lips, or vice versa. So you want to actually talk about these things with your children as early as 3. Even the 2-year-old can understand to a certain extent. But now, we need to do this with caution because, for example, my children, you hear them playing, oh, this person has touched my private part. They take it as a joke. But it's better for them to understand that this part of my body is private, right? It is the knowledge that that part is private to them, that they should become aware that if anybody touches that part, my son to tell me, my brother touched my private part, and they are joking about it. They are playing, and I'll re-emphasize my lesson, say, no, you do not touch your brother's private. It's private to him. Respect his body boundaries. So you want to teach your child body boundaries. Body boundaries means, places where no one should cross. We'll look at that as we go ahead. So the activity here is that you want to use a doll. If you have a doll baby at home, this is practical part now. You can use a doll baby, or you can use a picture, right? There are simple body parts picture that show the female body parts, that show the male body parts, that are not too graphic, that are child appropriate, just simple. Just label the breast, label the lips. And when your child is pointing to these parts, you'd actually be emphasizing the parts that are, covered by the pants, covered by the bra, covered by clothing. These are parts that are private. No one should touch here. If anybody touches here, what can you do? You want to do this activity regularly to reinforce the corrections and ensure that your child can point to the part and give it the right name. That's what you do at this stage. So use pictures, use a doll if you have, right? You sit down with your child and you go through this over and over. So the goals continue. Safe versus unsafe touch. Good versus bad touch, another way to call it. Discuss the concept of safe and unsafe touch, or good and bad touch, with your child, right? You want to model what a healthy touch is, what a good touch is. Show your child the appropriate way for someone to show them affection. This is very important, right? One of the things that we should teach our children is that they have the power to say no. That's why I said the teaching of public body parts, saying that anybody can touch that part, is a disempowering thing to teach your child, because someone may be trying to abuse a child like that, and your child may not be able to say no because you thought that that's a public part, right? So you want to teach your child that their whole body is private to them, and that private parts are the parts that you do not go exposing publicly. You do not go showing to people, and you do not go looking at other people's private parts as well. So you want to model what a healthy or a good touch is, right? Stand up in your living room with your 3-4-year-old. Show them that when somebody touches you here, or wants to say good boy and taps your head, that's okay. Taps your shoulder, that's okay. If somebody taps your breast or taps your buttocks, that's not okay. So you want to show your child, show it, demonstrate it. Don't just talk about it, but you want to actually demonstrate it to your children, because these children learn visually more than they do verbally. They have a short attention span. So you want to go ahead to demonstrate appropriate touches and inappropriate ones. Tell your child, nobody should touch you here. You show them, right? Nobody should touch you here. Nobody touches you here, you have to do that. Except they are changing you, or all those kind of things. If you have a small child of 3 who's still wearing diapers, tell your child they can only touch you there if they're changing your diaper. You may not even remember that. But when you keep demonstrating, role playing, proper and inappropriate touches, it will stick to your child's mind more than just say. The fourth thing you want to teach is about good and bad images, right? Help your child to differentiate between appropriate and inappropriate images. Where most of us will struggle here is if we have been bathing with our children, right? Because if you teach your child a bad image of people showing their private parts, or people showing public things that should be done in private, publicly, right? When you teach your child that, and you have been bathing with your child, maybe you're, I don't know, you have a 6-year-old and you are their mom and you're still bathing with your 6-year-old son, right? Then you go teach them about good and bad image. That already is a disempowering situation. So first of all, parents, please, once children reach the age of 3, that's when you really begin to emphasize the issue of privacy. Your child should not be in the room when you're dressing up, when you're taking your bath. No, that's not appropriate. At a certain age, you need to start separating the boys from the girls as well. So teach your child to identify good images. Images that, people are wearing their full clothes, they're not touching their private parts and all that. Teach your child about those things. Bad images, people are showing their private parts. You want to teach your child that. That's a simplified way to say it. Good touch and bad touch. Begin teaching your children about those different touches. We have a picture that we're going to look at, right? The good picture, bad picture. Begin teaching your kids what kinds of pictures on TV or gadgets are okay to look at and when they need to look away or walk, right? Now, your child may go somewhere where something is being watched that is not appropriate. But I remember when my mom taught me about bad picture, I was very young. She just said, "You see people kissing, close your eyes." I kept closing my eyes till about 15 years. I just already became so uncomfortable watching what I had been told not to watch, even when I had entered the teen years. So that's how powerful what you say to your child. You're the one that mentions it first, and when you take time to exercise, it will make an impression on your child. Teach your child when it's a bad picture that has this or this or this in it. You want to look away, walk away from there, because it will corrupt your mind, right? But don't use those big words. They're too big for a small child. So body safety rules. The small picture here really emphasizes this lesson. So every child by age 5 should know that their body belongs to them, that they are the boss of their own body, right? That your child does not have to be hugged. Please, parents, don't force your child to hug even a relative that they don't want to hug. Because you are disempowering your child when you teach them that their body belongs to them, their body is private to them. And then at the same time, you're forcing your child to go and hug that uncle, and your child doesn't want to. Don't force them to do that. Don't force your child to be kissed or touched by people that they don't want to be from. Your child's body is theirs. They have the right to teach your child to say no. Look at that ahead. Private parts are the parts of the body covered by the bathing suit. Get out of view. You do not look, touch, or play games with each other's private. I've shared this picture on a deeply rooted forum. I'll share again for others who have not had this picture yet. You can use it as a talking point when you're teaching your child below 5. We use proper names for our private parts. They are not weird and funny. Everyone has them. Don't make your child feel ashamed about what is normal. Private parts are just another part of the body. No one should be asking me to keep a secret, because if it's all about private parts, we want to teach that secrets are not allowed. In our house, we do not keep secrets, especially when they concern private parts. My body safety circle, you can read that when you get the image. Put across to you. So you want to use pictures, right, to show your child exactly what you are talking about. Explain different body parts. Use simple language to describe them. The second thing, you want to study with them. You may watch a cartoon with your child. You may read a story with your child, right? Sit down, go through it, and answer the questions they may have. Or you ask questions that emphasize the lesson taught. You want to communicate your values. I've just given one value. In our family, we do not keep secrets, right? Mama and daddy love you very much. There's nothing that will happen to you that mama and daddy will kill you telling them. Because that's what predators tell children. That tell your mother and father, they will blame you, they will beat you, they will kill you and all that. And the child is kept in silence. So you need to teach the child that any secret that is about private should not, they must tell you or the other parent or some other trusted adult in their life, depending on who you introduce to your child as trusted adult. So discuss your family values regarding privacy. We're going to look at privacy rules as we go ahead. There should be privacy rules in every home. That's a value. right? You know, maybe boys don't go in when girls are bathing, girls don't come in when boys are bathing. Or you could say, you know, nobody should, you wash your private part from this age or that age and all whatnot. There are different family values regarding this particular conversation. So you need to think about what your values are, what values you want to communicate with your child, right? Some homes, boys don't sleep on the same bed with girls from a certain age. So you want to define what the boundaries are and also teach your child to have respect for the bodies of other people. You don't touch people when they tell you they don't want to be touched, even if it's their hand. I teach my boys already to respect each other's boundaries. That's how your child will also learn to keep their own body boundaries. I teach my children that if you don't want somebody to touch you, tell them no. And when your brother touches you don't want, you tell them no. And I'll tell your brother, respect your brother's boundaries. My 2-year-old says it, respect my boundaries. He may not really understand what he means, but he already knows that when he says no, nobody has the right to touch him, right? And that's an empowering thing to teach your child, because your child may need to say no to someone that they know very well, right? And when children don't believe that they can say no, when they're being abused by someone that knows them very well, they may not even know how to even escape from that situation. So 5 to 7 years, it's a very interesting picture here of this age group, what it's really about, right? The 5 to 7 year olds they have entered the age of maximum curiosity about their sexuality. This is what they usually do in schools. You see them comparing, right? Say, show me yours and I show you mine. It peaks around the age 5 to 7. This is when the kids really become curious and begin to experiment with their sexuality. So you have a boy and a girl, wondering why the boy is wondering why his looks the way it looks, and the girl is wondering why hers looks the way it looks. And particularly for kids who don't have siblings of the opposite sex, they may actually have never seen what the sexual organs of the opposite sex looks like. So when they go to school, that's where you find them really making these comparisons. That's why you must teach your child body boundaries, that private parts are private. You don't show it to others, and you don't go looking at others' private parts. So the goals for 5 to 7 is that you want to first of all emphasize all the lessons from 0 to 4 years, building a connection, establishing gender identity, teaching your child good and bad touch, teaching your child good and bad images, and teaching your child about their private parts and about privacy. So you want to ensure your child understands their gender and what makes them different from the opposite sex. It is very important. If you're a Christian, the Bible teaches us that God made us male and female. Please teach that to your child specifically. Don't assume that your child knows it and that your child believes it, because the world is teaching children today that you can't be any sex you want. That is something that is contrary to what God's word teaches us. So teach your child that specifically, that God made man and woman, and that marriage is for man and woman, right? Not for boy and boy or girl and girl. You want to teach these things specifically because the world is already teaching another message from what the Bible is telling us. So emphasize the lesson on good touch and bad touch here. Remember I said you must demonstrate what a good touch and a bad touch is. Demonstrate it. Don't assume that you've said it, your child understands. No. Demonstrate and keep demonstrating. Also teach your child what they should do if someone is giving them a bad touch. You can teach them to shout, to call for help, and to, what can they say? We learned during a sex predators class that you want to teach your child a code word for when they are in a situation that makes them uncomfortable. So teach and demonstrate. You want to teach your child not to keep any secrets regarding their body. Talk to them about adults in your circle. They can talk to about anything. Now, teach your child that there are other people that they can talk to. Remember I said, don't teach your child stranger danger. Why? Because sometimes the stranger may be the one in a position to help your child, especially when they are being abused by someone that they are supposed to trust. There are children who have been abused by their fathers, by their own mothers, by their nanny, by their uncle, by their cousin. These are people that the child is supposed to trust, but then they abuse the trust and then abuse the child. So if you teach your child stranger danger, your child will be powerless when it comes to actually being able to seek help. So teach your child about who they can talk to when they are receiving a bat or somebody is trying to threaten their safety. So you want to keep it and make sure that your child understands who these adults are. Now, teach in simple basic facts where babies come from. Yes, 5 to 7, these children are really talking about where babies come from. I bet you they are. They talk about it in school because they see pregnant women and they wonder and they are curious. Like I said, it's the age of curiosity. They are asking and they have their theories about where babies come from. Go and ask a child that and you hear the theories they're going to give you. So teach them in simple, basic facts where babies come from. Not necessarily how they are made, but where they come from. You're not to go into the dynamics of sex at this stage. It is not necessary, except your child has been exposed. There are kids at this age that have really watched pornography. Your child has been exposed. At that stage, your conversation is going to be a complete different ballgame because you're going to try to have your child unlearn what they learned before they start relearning what they should know. So keep it simple. No need for details. Always start by asking what your child knows about where babies come from so that you can correct the misinformation. Remember that use of pictures are very helpful when you are giving these lessons. In this age group, you will focus on nurturing your child's body awareness, right? I said earlier that by this age, your child should have mastered the names of the various body parts and what makes a boy different from a girl. You also want to promote a healthy understanding of body boundaries. Body boundaries, why? Because this age group is characterized by bold exploration. In school, you say, touch my own and I'll touch your own. Show me your own. So you want to teach your child body boundaries. Body boundaries means where no one should be touching them, not even their classmates or age mates. So by engaging in these activities, you can reinforce privacy, right? When someone is bathing, that's a private moment. When someone is using the toilet, that's a private moment. You don't go, exposing your genitals in public. That's a private moment. Those are private things. So by doing this, you need to reinforce what privacy means according to your family values. Encourage open conversations and help your child differentiate between good and bad touch. So first you were to demonstrate. Now you have your child show you what they will do if someone's giving them a bad touch. Your child should actually give it back to you now. And you also want to have your child show you what good touches are. Why? Because some children have gotten into trouble because they were accused of touching the mates of the opposite sex in an inappropriate manner. There's some kids that maybe don't know what a good touch is, and they go and touch a female classmate on their buttocks. And that child raises an alarm. It would actually cause trouble for your son, for example, who may have done it ignorantly. So don't leave your child ignorant. Teach your child about what appropriate touch is. Teach your child about other people's body boundaries as well. So reinforce a sense of privacy. So practically now, number one, reinforce a sense of privacy. Help your child understand the importance of privacy and respecting people's personal boundaries. You knock the door before you enter the different rooms of the house. You don't enter without knocking. When uncle and auntie or mama and daddy are dressing, they need privacy. When you are taking your bath, you need privacy. Activity 1, personal space. So you need to create a personal space circle around your child, right? Just use a chalk, for example, and explain to your child that this is their personal space so that others need to ask permission before coming in. So your child understands that they actually have control. This belongs to them. Now, privacy with your child. Changing the clothes. Oh my God. Teach your child that this activity should be done in private, right? There's something we've not mentioned here. Now, children around the age of 2, 3, 4 actually pass through a stage where they touch their genitals a lot. Now, they're not doing this in a sexual manner. It's just a stage of development, right? Where they get some kind of satisfaction, not necessarily sexually, from this activity. It's soothing and it's comforting for them. So you want to teach your child that's a private behavior. You want to teach your child that their own private parts are not toys as well. When you find your child doing that, please do not beat your child or do not establish shame around that particular area, because when your child starts feeling ashamed of their own genitals, if something happens, your child may be disempowered, your child may not be able to come to you. So please don't beat your child when you find your child doing that. Teach your child that your private part, your vagina, your penis is not a toy. You only use it or you only touch it when you're using the bathroom or when you want to wash it. But that's it. Nobody should touch it, and neither should you also play with it. So you want to teach your child that it's a private activity. You don't do that. Some kids stand in public and they put their hands in their shoulders and they are touching, their private parts. That's inappropriate behavior. That's a private behavior. But you don't want to shun or shame your child for it. You want to teach your child or find ways to distract their attention from that particular activity. Asking questions about friends and games. Please, 5 to 7. Encourage open conversations about friendships and the activities they engage in. Make a habit to ask your 5 to 7-year-old, what were you playing? I remember I said it was at this age that my son, I found out that there was something called the husband and wife game. And I asked my child about it and I was shocked at his response. So ask your child about their friends, about what they play when they come together. Your child may be so ignorant and innocent enough to just tell you, Mama, we're playing the husband and wife game today. We're playing show me mine, I show you mine, show me yours, I show you mine. You may be surprised that your child may actually have engaged in something sexual without realizing that it was not appropriate. So just ask openly about the kind of games they engage in with their friends at this stage. Now, you want to ask your child what they enjoy doing together. You want to discuss different types of games and activities. Teach your child that any game or activity that entails, exposing body parts, touching body parts is not for them, right? Emphasize your family values about purity, about respecting people's boundaries, about privacy. You want to emphasize it at this level. And why your child must not engage in activities that go against your values. Teach your child that their body is God's temple. I taught my children this from age 3. Teach them that their body is God's temple, right? Teach them about how to care for their body and how certain things may actually dishonor God's temple. I teach my children that in simple words, and I build on it as they grow older. So you want to reaffirm your child's sexual identity. Help your child understand their gender first and then affirm their sexual identity. Create affirmation cards and positive statements about your son's gender. Boys are strong. Boys are a blessing. Let your child know that their gender is an advantage to them. So that when they are told that they can become a girl, they'll not see a need to change from boy to girl. Encourage your child to pick a card each day and discuss what the affirmation means to them. Right? You can write different things on different cards. Have your child pick one each day and then you discuss it with them. The second thing you may try to do is that you want to understand, get your child to understand good and bad touch by teaching your child how to differentiate between that. We've done that. Role playing by acting out different scenarios where your child can practice identifying good and bad touch. Guide them on appropriate responses such as saying no and moving away and reporting. Please emphasize that they must report to a trusted adult. That part is very important. So first is no, screaming, moving away, and then reporting to a trusted adult. Remember, these activities are designed to foster a positive understanding of body boundaries, of consent, and of personal identity. Thank you so much. I hope that you have gotten value from this lesson. I hope that this lesson has left you with more practical tips to be able to actually go and practice with your children. You will receive the notes from this lesson. If you need the cards, you also receive other practical equipment, practical resources that you can actually look. For example, I will send you pictures that you can use when you're having your sex conversation with your younger kids. I'll also send you write-ups on privacy and more on good and bad touch, more on good and bad images. If there are any questions at this point, please feel free to ask. Thank you so much for listening. So next class, we deal with puberty, preteens, and teenagers. We have handled 0 to 7 years. We are going to take from 8 years because puberty lessons should start from age 8. If you have an 8-year-old, we must start teaching them about puberty, because actually the pre-pubertal changes begin from 8. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. We are going to shut down the class if there are no questions. If there are any comments, have you learned anything new? Have you gotten any practical steps that can help you proceed to teach what you need to teach? You may have learned something that you need to go back to add to what you have been taught. So please take those steps and go back and do that.
Okay, please, I have a question, Mom. Good evening.
Nima. Please, yeah, the
Please,
first
I have a question. Good evening.
evening.
Yes, Doc, I wish to ask that if, let's say, a teenage girl wants to date maybe a boy, if a male child, let's say the child is 7, and maybe the child is not feeling too strong, and the child is maybe feeling ashamed or shy, how can you do to encourage the child not to be ashamed or shy about the issue? Or is it the role of you, the parent, to be the one to be the child? Or how should I go about that? And secondly, I also want to ask, maybe you are with your parent, maybe your father, like for instance, my father is not feeling too strong. He's having a post-treat, enlarged post-treat, and we are always cleaning him up. A child is there, a girl, a child is there, you don't know how to go about it, about that particular action. Meanwhile, when maybe even when you're cleaning, your father is there screaming, and it attracts attention. So I don't know how we can go about that.
You mean you're cleaning your father in the presence of your child? I don't know if I got that right.
Yes, I'm saying that he's not feeling too bad. So, and when you order paper now, he's been the thing has been attached to him. There, where he urinates at the same point, you have to go and empty the waste. And when you're cleaning, the thing is really cool because at times he do cry, he do scream, he do shout out. So the kids will always call attention, and even if you send them out, it always call attention. They have affection for their grandfather, so they'll always feel as to come in. So I don't know how we can go about that.
That cleaning your is a very private activity. Remember, we said that you're teaching your kids about good things. Your children don't need to be part of that process. No matter what, it's not appropriate for your child to be present when you are cleaning an adult male, their grandfather. No, I don't think that you need to be, I don't think that's not appropriate, ma. That's not appropriate, because if that child is not allowed to bathe with their father, then why would they be there when they are giving intimate care to their grandfather? No, it's going to open the room. No, ma, please. I encourage you to please desist from that. It's not appropriate, ma. And you have to find a way, lock the door. They shouldn't be allowed to come in when you're cleaning your father. No, they shouldn't be allowed to come in. I'm sure even for you as your father's daughter, it should be difficult, right? It must difficult being having to uncover your father's nakedness. And imagine bringing your father's grandchild into the room when you're doing that. Please, man, no. Please, no. They don't need to be there when you're doing that. Secondly, you asked about the issue of, a teenage girl bathing a 7-year-old boy because he's not feeling well. These are things that we commonly do in our homes, right? And what it does is that it desensitizes the child. Now, when you're teaching body boundaries and privacy, right, you want your child to know that, they have a right to their space, and that nobody is allowed to touch them without their permission. That's the first thing you want. That's what you want to teach your child. So consent is necessary. And also, if this child must be bathed by an elder sibling, for example, then when it comes to the when it's time to bathe the private parts, consent should be acquired. Please, can I just, I want to just bathe your, can I bathe your private part? You can ask the child that. The child is sick, but at least he still has his voice. You know, that lets the child know that they still have power over their body. Because yes, you're right, there are times when the 7-year-old may not be able to do his bath by himself because he's sick, for example. But by 7, your child should be taking a bath by themselves. And you may actually just pop in to supervise, but let your child know that they should not be moving around the house naked. There should be privacy rules. By the time your child gets to age 5, start discouraging this habit of running around the house naked. You know, encourage your child to tie their towel around their waist. That's what the child will build on that. I'm here in Douala and I see children, teenage girls, moving around with bra and pants. You know this kind of young 14-year-old girl who already has breasts, and she's so comfortable coming out of the house with her pants and her bra. That's not appropriate, parents. When we do things like this, we actually predispose our children to abuse. Because your child, maybe for your child is so innocent that doesn't think there's something wrong with going. There are homes where people move around like that. You know, the mother is free to move around, particularly single moms, moves around with her bra and her pants in front of her teenage son. No, it's not appropriate, ma. So I'm saying that this child, if it must happen, then you can also still practice seeking consent. Like just like how you're taking a child to the doctor. It's an extraordinary situation. The child must know that the doctor, consent has to be sought. You say, okay, dear, the doctor now is going to check you. Remember, we had discussed that the only time somebody can touch you there is it can be a doctor, but even then, the parent has to be there or the doctor has to ask permission. So you ask permission, then you proceed with the exam. So you want to keep building on this so that your child, when they go out of your house, they will be sensitized about the validity of their boundaries. So that if somebody tries, because the thing with predators is that they are very skillful in their act. They know how to bring down a child's defenses. So when you have a child that's already desensitized at home, that child is already at a disadvantage, even with what they know. Because when the boundary lines are blurry, the child may be confused about what they can or cannot do. So that's what you want. That's why you start encouraging your kids to take their bath by themselves at a certain age. By the time they get to 5 to 7, start teaching them how to give themselves a bath, letting them wash their own private areas by themselves. You supervise. So that's what I'm going to say, ma. I really hope this helps you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There was a question in the chat. Let me see. What about going to the beach with your kids and they see people showcasing their body parts? What do you tell them? Well, that is actually beach behavior. But you notice that even on the beach, the private parts are covered. Are they not? They are. Nobody's moving around the beach naked, right? They are putting on, that's why the whites call it the bikini area. Because the bikini is the least form of clothing you'll see people wearing outside of their home. Because when you go to the beach, it's an extraordinary place. That is beach behavior. So you want to let that. That's why I said when you use the bikini area for children who have actually been to the beach, who have been swimming, they will understand what it means. That is an area that is covered, right? Because at the beach, people actually wear, clothes that are very close to naked, but then the essential parts are protected. So we want to emphasize to your child that yes, the bikini area is your prime, these are really the private parts, and that's why they're covering them. So they are moving like this, but they will not go out of here in that manner. Nobody will go to the road, wearing just their bikini. I hope I've answered your question, Madam Vera. So another question from Madam Johans. Madam Johans, please ask your question.
Good evening, Doctor. Good evening, purposeful parents.
Good evening, ma'am.
Doctor, thank you so much for the teachings of today. Just like every other session, we are always wowed and getting more than we paid for. So my question is it appropriate for parents to kiss or cuddle in front of the children?
Wow. Now, yes, it's very appropriate. But how far you take on the lips is okay, right? You don't want to come caressing your wife and being overtly sexual in front of your children, no. right? You want to, why? Because now the relationship between you and your husband is it's a very big piece of sex education for children. Why? Because that's where they learn that marriage is between a man and a woman. That's where they learn how, spouses treat each other. That's where they learn about, the fact that now my kids, for example, we're able to extrapolate because we are very, very keen about controlling what they watch. They're able to extrapolate that, kissing was for mama and daddy because that's all they have ever seen. They've only seen it in mama and daddy. They've never seen, they had not seen it anywhere else yet. So they were able to extrapolate that just by watching us. And we don't do, French kiss. No, just a peck. My husband comes back from work, he gives me a peck. When I'm going out, I give him a peck, just like that. So we have peck, we give each other pecks. But all the kissing and caressing, no. Please, parents, no. That's too far. But it's good to show some form of affection between you and your spouse in front of your children. But this must be limited. Please. And another thing parents must be very careful about, having your children walk in when you are having sexual relations with your partner. Please, parents, what happens in your home is a very big part of sex conversations, and it can actually work against you if you do not take precaution. Just because you are married doesn't mean you can go around having sex everywhere around the house. No. Once you have kids, there needs to be boundaries. If you are living in a one-bedroom house, that's why children who are usually over sexualized, it can happen with parents who are living in one-bedroom houses because they don't have any particular space to carry out their intimate relations. So you have them waiting in the middle of the night, assuming that the kids are sleeping, and then they engage, and then a child wakes up and actually sees you doing what you're doing. You have actually activated your child if this happens to you. So please be careful, lock up your room. You want to put out children that should not be in your space when you're carrying out some of these things. Have some form of control. Yes, even in your home, when you have small kids or you have kids, you need to be able to conduct yourself in an appropriate manner as well. I hope that I've answered your question.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, I think let me check the chat. We have no other question. If there's no other question, then I think we can. So please, who is yet to have sex conversations with their children? We are still coming to the preteens and the teens. Please, anyone with children below 7, has this class really empowered you to be able to, go forth and at least do something? Have you had some points that you can actually go forth and be able to do something? Somebody asked me what they should tell their child about sex. I think for what year, I can't remember. So sex doesn't come yet. It has not yet. We have not yet reached sex. We have not yet reached the actual act of. By 7, we haven't reached there yet. That's why I said it's not all about sex. Sex is just one part of sex conversations. Up to 7. But 5 to 7 touches on how children are, where children come from, where babies come from. So sex, we've not yet gotten to sex, except your child already knows much more than you are supposed to teach at this level. Some of us have kids that have already watched pornography. That's a reality. You want to. Remember I said, find out your child knows more than you plan to teach. Madam Gwendolyn, please mute your mic. Then you want to, go and prepare yourself. Give your child proper education for what they already know. So there are no other questions, and I believe that we have come to the end of today's class. Thank you so much. Madam Jones, your hand is still
Doctor,
up.
please, one thing before you go.
Okay. Go ahead, ma'am.
Please, Doc, one thing before you go, please. Something like when visitors, maybe aunts, when they come around, they want to give a child a peck. Maybe some are even giving the child maybe a peck on the lips. And they're really elder people. It's okay. So I don't know, even in schools, maybe within their peers, yes. So it's to discourage it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, discourage that. Discourage it very strongly. You see, you're a purposeful parent, you must be bold. A purposeful parent is bold. When you identify your why, it gives you boldness. You say no because they are disempowering your child. Your child will be confused. Why did mama allow auntie to kiss me on my mouth when mama had taught me that my mouth is my private part and nobody should put their own private part on it? And now auntie is putting her private part on my mouth. Mama is saying nothing. Please, no, do not. Please don't kiss my child on the lips, right? It is a private part and I don't want them thinking that it's okay for them to be kissing. Just tell the person, politely but firmly so they understand that you are serious about this. Teach your children that nobody should. My 2-year-old, no, there was a day I was trying to give my 2-year-old a peck and I mistakenly kissed him on the mouth. He was like, Mama, you kissed my mouth. Because I taught him. So even I should not kiss him on his lips. That's how strong the lesson went through. He knows that he should not be kissed on the lips by anyone. And we too do not kiss him on his lips. When he was 1, I used to do it, but I stopped, right? When you get a baby, you forget that. And I stopped. And he said, Mama, you kissed my lips. He said, Mama, don't kiss my mouth. And I was like, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. You told me when I was coming to kiss your jaw. I had to apologize and emphasize again that nobody should kiss him there. So he already knows, he has his body boundaries. He knows the boundaries. That's the power of you emphasizing and re-emphasizing. These children hear and they internalize. So the more you teach it, the stronger it will be on your child's mind. So don't think they're not hearing. They're hearing and they're learning. They may actually misinterpret, and then when they misinterpret, you come back, you correct and you redirect and all that. So teach it, please, because the predators out there, they are not joking. They're looking for the most ignorant children to prey on. Let's not be led by fear, but also let us know the facts so that it empowers us to teach what will help our children defend themselves. So thank you so much once again, dear parents. The class has really gone on longer than planned. If there are no questions, I believe that this lesson has really given you practical steps that you can take. Practically. There are no questions. Thank you so much for joining me, and see you at the next Monday session. God bless you. Oh, there's a question. Sorry. Okay, somebody says, thank you, doctor, for the class of today. Has given me more. Okay, great. Thank you so much, dear parents. Bye-bye. Good night.